In this video, we're going to be talking about the difference between quitting cold turkey and slow and steady. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode here at Sobriety University. This channel, we discuss sobriety and addiction recovery related topics. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the difference between quitting cold turkey and slow and steady. And I found over this process that there are pros and cons to each. At the end, I'm going to be talking about which one I choose to use now when I quit addictions and which one has some more positive long-term benefits than the other. And of course, always looking forward to hearing what your experience has been with either cold turkey or slow and steady. So feel free to put in the comments below. And diving right in, first we're going to talk about cold turkey and how now this can be very helpful in situations where one might be in a bind. So I'll give an example. When I was quitting marijuana, I was dealing, selling, and I got in a bit of trouble. And I was at this point where I was like, okay, if I don't quit now, there's going to be some serious consequences. So in that regards, quitting cold turkey was very helpful because I got free of it very quickly. And because of the severity of the potential consequences, I think that really helped in actually letting it go and not relapsing. Now, the thing of cold turkey and what we're going to talk about in this video is that because often there's not that immediate consequence or that immediate long-term consequence or short-term consequence, it's more like a death by 1,000 cuts kind of thing, that it can be hard to stick with cold turkey. And it can also lead to some other negative effects because it's just so much at once. It can almost be traumatic to the soul, to the body, to the mind, when something that's been going on for so long just gets cut off at the source. And because I put so much pressure on myself to quit like right now, that whenever I did relapse, because it was kind of inevitable because I'd been using certain substances for so long, that I would feel such shame and guilt, and the mind would just start going nuts, and the ego would just start beating up on me for making mistakes. And in a sense, it almost made a cycle in itself. So for example, when I was quitting sugar, I made the decision to quit on January 1st, of course, in 2018. And I was like, okay, I'm done forever. Like, I'm good. I'll never need it again. And of course, I kept relapsing. And every time I did, it just, I would feel guilt and shame because I couldn't live up to this standard, this expectation. And then I would feel so bad that I would just eat again. And then I would feel so bad because I ate, and then I'd be like, okay, I'm done again forever. And then the cycle just kept going and going. Now, having learned from that experience, I did eventually quit after about a couple years. About a year after that, I decided that it was time to start quitting caffeine and dairy. And with this time, I decided I'm going to take this very slow. I'm going to do the slow and steady approach. And so with that, let's dive into that. Now, of course, one of the cons of slow and steady is it takes longer. Possibly. And I think that's kind of what this video is getting at, is that even though the cold turkey might be like in the immediate a lot faster, that over the long term, it can actually make the process longer because there's this cycle of shame and feeling guilt that gets built up. Here, I'll say it like this. What's nice about the slow and steady is it gives the person the opportunity to really kind of say goodbye to the addiction, to really grieve it, to really process it, to really almost enjoy it, I'll be honest, and kind of have those last goodbyes and kind of reminisce, I guess, on the good times, all while knowing that it's on its way out. And in that process of the slow grieving, it causes the body to be able to let go of the addiction kind of naturally. And so what I found was when I was doing cold turkey, although I would eventually quit, what I found after maybe a year and a half to 2 years is that some of those behaviors, some of those emotions that I was feeling when I was using were still there. And I felt confusion because I was like, I'm not using the substance anymore. Why do I still feel this way? Why am I still behaving this way? This doesn't make sense. And it was because I hadn't processed those when I was using. I was in just such fight and desperation to quit that I really didn't give the time to kind of process those deeper emotions and maybe kind of learn about why I was using it in the first place. And so now with this, with caffeine, for example, I was really kind of able to take some times on the day I wasn't using and kind of say, okay, why did I decide to use this? Why did I need it so much? And kind of reflect on the yin and yang of it, on the back and forth. And then when I would use it again, I would really be able to kind of see the differences in how I felt, how I behaved. And then of course I'd feel comfortable enough, and like I wouldn't feel like ashamed of it, because I'm like, okay, I know in a day or two I'm going to be back to not using it. And so the fear of having huge consequences is not there. And that made the process a lot easier. What was nice is that I was able to quit in a lot shorter of a period of time. So it took about maybe a month to quit caffeine versus where it took 2 years to quit sugar. So one might be asking now, like, how do you do slow and steady? Well, so personally, I found the best way was to take like one day where I just wouldn't use. Start small, and then go back to the regular cycle. And then when I felt motivated again, do another day, and then go back. And I kept doing this until one day became super easy, to where like I didn't have to try anymore. And it was almost like boring. I'm like, okay, this is like, I keep doing this. This is like not yielding anything anymore. And then I knew it was time to go to 2 days. And the great thing about slow and steady is taking those small steps causes just amount of discomfort to where real growth is possible. However, not enough discomfort to where one goes into trauma and needs to go to a psych ward, which has happened before, I will tell you. So obviously I'm not trying to go to the psych ward anymore, so I'm gonna take it super slow. And again, that's what I did. And so after 2 days got super easy, went to 3 days, so on and so forth, until I was about 5 to 6 days, and I was really enjoying how I felt without more than the days I would use, because the best part about this is then one can contrast the before and after, the using and not using. And that's when I knew I was ready to quit for good. And because I had built up such that, I guess, it was almost a habit at this point, instead of like this, I must do this for my survival, that it was a lot easier to just kind of say goodbye for good. And I haven't touched it in almost a year. And so now I'm currently working on addiction with internet and technology. So like watching YouTube, kind of ironic, right? And so I'm taking the slow and steady approach with YouTube. And yeah, it's a lot better. Like I'm saying, I'm doing way more days without YouTube and movies and stuff than with. And then the days with, I can enjoy it, and I can kind of see some of the negative consequences again more clearly, like I was saying, without that traumatic effect of feeling like, oh God, my life's going to implode now. And because I know I'm going to get back on the wagon, and I know it's every time I do try it again to quit, it's a lot easier. So I think if I were to be like, hey, I got to quit forever, I can never touch it again, I have to do this, I'd be just in this constant anxiety and ebb and flow of shame and guilt, and then feeling like supercharged up to do it again, and then feeling hatred because I failed again. And obviously it's just all ego and stuff. This whole cycle, I mean, just saying it is exhausting. So again, from now on is why the slow and steady I found to be the most beneficial long-term approach to quitting drugs, alcohol, you name it, any addiction. And so with that, I think that'll end the video for today. Guys, feel free to comment on what addiction you're working on and how you're doing it, whether it's cold turkey or slow and steady. And let us know what you're thinking about each one and some of the pros and cons you've experienced with each, because at the end of the day, it's different for everyone. That's something that's I've had to learn over this journey, is that what works for one person might not work for another person. That being said, when a certain amount of things are working for, it's a paradox of life. When a certain amount of things are working for someone, for a bunch of people, then it probably does work. So with that confusing comment, I'll end the video there. And thanks so much for watching. Talk to you next one. Peace.